Shout out to audience member Zero Sam. He asked a very critical question that actually borders us on almost what you will call taboo, but it's actually common sense. Zero Sam said the good question is, how long will PlayStation game studios last since their games struggle against third parties on PlayStation 5 and PC, since all they can do is bloated budget games? Now, they do make some small budget games, to be fair. However, I see exactly where your question is going, Zero Sam, because for me, I like to look at what the data set shows. So immediately, let's fire up PlayStation's financial statement, December 31st, 2024. This is going to give us kind of an idea of what I think is probably a strong sales quarter, which is including the holidays. And I think we can see what I think is the best case scenario of a PlayStation fiscal sales year based on the data that we have currently. Okay, things could get better. Not saying that this is the best. I'm just saying best case scenario based on the data. So when you look at this particular piece that was published by Gematsu at the time, December 2024, you'll notice that PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 software, which are their games, combined sold a total of 95.9 million units during the 3 months ending December 31st, 2024, which is up 6.2 million from the 89.7 million software sold during the same period the previous fiscal year. Then, of that number, 11.6 million units were first-party titles, which is down from 16.2 million units sold during the same period. If you want to look at what percentage of that particular number was PlayStation games, all we have to do is take a calculator and do our 11.6 out of the, what is this, 90, let me see, 11.6, and then this was, what was that full number, 95.9, and we'll be able to see what that percentage is. So it's about 12%. So PlayStation is doing a 12% conversion for the number of units in terms of consoles sold. If you did it for the PlayStation first-party games, when you look at the, the 75 million console units sold, which would be 11.6 divided by 75, that would give us about a 15.4% in terms of the gamers that are actually getting, converted in that regard. Now, when you think about this, this said that this number of first-party titles was down 4.6 million from the 16.2 million units which were sold during the same period during the fiscal year. This same period during the fiscal year, those last 3 months, September, October, November, December, you had a very influential game, which was Marvel Spider-Man 2, that bled into that, final 3-ish months or 4, depending on how it is that they're looking at it, that would have boosted the sales in that regard. So what this tells us is PlayStation is going to need active bangers each quarter to be able to see these numbers continue to stay afloat. Else, they have to depend not only on third-party games, but the success of these third-party games. Or they use another option to get these software sold. Because here's something that a lot of people have never really considered. And this is what made me laugh at a lot of people with the MLB The Show one. And, a lot of people kind of like thought that they were, owning me. They were like, oh, VG, you're an idiot. How can you say that MLB The Show is not something of a unique position? Because, MLB mandated that PlayStation sell that game on Xbox. And I say to you, but on the financial statements, PlayStation doesn't care whether or not MLB said they should sell it. MLB The Show, if a copy of it has sold in this particular quarter, it will be counted as a first-party game. It counted as the 11.6 million units wherever it's sold, whether it's sold on Nintendo Switch or whether it's sold on the Xbox console. Which means that if PlayStation wants to raise this number, right, any given time, it can exercise the option of moving that game to other platforms such as Xbox, because if you think about it, the option of PC is already exercised in this quarter at the time, right? Because Marvel Spider-Man 2, actually, it's not in this quarter just yet, but, Ragnarok was in that quarter as well. And those Ragnarok copies that sold on PC, let's just go ahead and take a look at it, right? Any copy of God of War Ragnarok that would have sold, or the old God of War or whatever it is, would have also been included into this 11.6 million units of first-party titles. Does that make sense? Software sales combined in total. So it's either they move it to Xbox or they move it to the Nintendo Switch. So what PlayStation has been doing is, and let's go ahead and put a and NS2. That's what we're gonna call. That's what Nintendo folk have been calling it. So these are their options. Now they also exercise another really weird option here, which is they go ahead and reduce their workforce every given time. But reducing your workforce and rehiring and reducing your workforce and rehiring and training can start getting old. So the option of PC is already, kind of drying up because they've already pretty much been able to appeal to what I think is the number of PC players that they can appeal to. And after they pull that stuff off with Helldivers 2, it didn't necessarily seem like they could gain a lot of favorability because the Helldivers 2 thing was not just the only one. It was a Helldivers 2 issue as well as the PlayStation account sign-in requirement issue, which is why you've seen their game sales kind of get stunted. Some people have kind of categorized it to be, it's just that the specialness of it is gone. And I'm like, well, how would the specialness of it not be gone when you put a blockade for your own gamers to basically be able to play your game? So logically, if I was in PlayStation's shoes and say third-party software was not being as forthcoming for us in a quarter, we have to have a contingency of shipping these games to other platforms. That would be what a prudent PlayStation manager would do, of which there is already a direct anytime, any day pipeline to Steam. It's already there. There are almost no conditions for the Steam pipeline. There's also another pipeline, which is a live service pipeline right now, of which you notice that live service pipeline is starting to lose its stipulations in some cases. Like Marathon, which is a live service game, seemingly is going to need an Xbox launch. Everyone is already spelling doom and gloom for that game. I'm not one of them. I'm just looking from outside and saying, well, good thing they're launching it on Xbox, because if there's one console where people actually like to play live service shooters, you can count on Xbox gamers. It's weird, but they just play live service shooters. I mean, PlayStation players do, but Xbox is another place where live service games just somehow, flourish. So maybe there's a pipeline here. They can score maybe a couple mil of players here. So if they can do an active player base of, consistently a few million players, they should be able to run their game and improve their game with the community. But there's one more barrier, which is a price tag that's attached to it. And this is where things are going to be very interesting. They may not be able to get their way like the Division games have done and some other titles, but we'll see how all of this lies. So their business model is a very interesting business model because as much as PlayStation has, in a sense, positioned itself to look like it's a business model that's solely based on its console success, it's basically been a business model that's based on everybody else's success as well. Because let's go ahead and let's look at something very interesting. I mean, and we got to run the numbers for this. So let's say they sold 11.6 million units of their software, right? Let's just say 11.6 million. Let's do the full numbers. 11.6 million. That's 11.6 million. And they sold all those software units, of which Helldivers 2 actually was the biggest number. But let's just say they sold it all for $60. Full revenue, right? Let's just say they got full revenue from it. That's $696 million raked in. Now, with third party, right, which would be which is up 6.2 million. So the first party, which would be 95.9 minus 11.6, which would be 84.3 million units, right? So 84.3 million units. That's this, right? And then let's just say times 60, which would be $60 games. That's 5 billion, but they only get 30% from it, 0.3. That's $1.5 billion. Okay? So they make more money on third-party games than their first-party titles. However, it's in a very, very, best-case scenario that this actually does happen, right? But they need to get to the point where they convert this $6 billion. Let's go ahead and look at it right here on the side of the screen. This $6 billion, this 696 million, it needs to start looking like this 1-point-something billion dollars because, again, the whole gaming landscape is changing and they cannot continue to depend on their third-party partners at this particular cadence. Because if their third-party partners are taking a hiatus, they're not going to be seeing this kind of money. Or they need to find a way to promote more of their third-party partners to be able to make more money, from here. But then these guys constantly pretty much deem their platform a third-party machine. They're not raking in those funds directly from their own, efforts in terms of making games. So this is a very interesting thing. And this is also hinged on the fact that they need to sell consoles to be able to retrieve and realize those gains. And that's, without cost and everything. And we know their margins at 7% or so. So when you think about it, they kind of have to double that income somewhere. They got to either double the first party sales to make it another $1 billion, or they got to double the third party sales to make it another 1.5 billion. To make it $3 billion in terms of those first party sales, if you get what I mean. So something's got to give. So if you think about it right now, what PlayStation is doing to mitigate all of these factors, when you think about it, is as they're looking at their first party, game sales, basically trailing the third party games, they're using another methodology to raise their price, to basically raise their, their revenue, which is raising prices on subscriptions and hardware. Does that make sense? So if you notice, the first party software sales, not necessarily as great as they would want. Third party software sales is coming in, but they still need more revenue. So what do? PlayStation Plus, raise the prices, add more dollars here. PlayStation 5, what do? Add more dollars there and raise those prices so that they can increase revenue. They literally are looking for money hand over fist to be able to get their business moving in this particular case. So if you understand PlayStation's business model in this regard, you'll realize that this is exactly how it operates. It's very different from what the fantasy that the fanboys have been trying to, put out here. Oh, they're quality games. Oh, they're first party games. Yeah, right. It's literally in a single quarter, it's it's almost a third of the revenue that third party games are bringing in, if you get what I mean. So it really is a third party platform. That's what it is. And we know this, but it's just what the data is showing us. So how long can PlayStation continue to last? As long as third-party developers continue to make games and stay profitable, and as long as players continue to buy games and stay profitable. But the question is, how long can consumers continue to pay PlayStation's premium prices to keep their operation up? And I guess time will tell. Talk to me in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching the video. Appreciate you guys so much. Peace out.